You've been told your best days are behind you. That aging means slowing down, losing strength, watching your body fade like an old photograph. But what if I told Tweeb they were wrong? What if I told you that real strength doesn't fade? It waits. And sometimes all it needs is the right signal, not a drug, not a supplement, not even eggs. It's a humble bean. Yes, a bean, often overlooked, often underestimated, just like you might feel sometimes after 60. But here's the true thing: this small, fiber-packed, protein-rich food isn't just something you eat. It's something that rebuilds you. It fuels your cells with amino acids, ignites your metabolism, stabilizes your blood sugar, and most importantly, it helps your muscles come back stronger. After 60, your body doesn't respond the way it did at 30. It needs precision, not guesswork. And the right foods, like this humble legume, are biological switches. They flip on regeneration. They tell your muscle fibers, I'm done yet, because you're not done yet. Every bite becomes a message to your body: grow, heal, stand taller. You don't need a perfect gym. How do we? You don't need a personal trainer. What you need is the will to adapt and the courage to break the rules of aging that society wrote for you. Forget eggs, forget shortcuts, forget excuses. Pick up that spoon, eat that bean, and remember, every meal is a comeback. Every choice is a form of resistance. And you are still building muscle, still building legacy, still building you. Anchoring nutrition in biological truths means going beyond trends, fads, or marketing claims and rooting dietary choices in the actual physiology of the human body. It requires a foundational understanding of how specific nutrients interact with cellular systems, hormonal pathways, and neuromuscular signaling, especially as we age. The body is not static. Its nutritional needs evolve with time, particularly after the age of 60, when sarcopenia, inflammation, and insulin resistance begin to impact muscle growth and recovery. Anchoring nutrition in biology demands recognition that amino acids are the raw materials for muscle protein synthesis, that certain plant-based proteins, like those found in legumes, contain sufficient leucine to trigger the mTR pathway, and that combining those with the right micronutrients, such as magnesium, iron, and folate, further enhances their muscle building effect. It means understanding that digestion slows with age, that gut microbiome diversity declines, and that the fiber and polyphenols in beans help reverse this trajectory by nurturing beneficial bacteria, reducing systemic inflammation, and improving nutrient absorption. It also means knowing that blood glucose regulation becomes more fragile with age, and that slow digesting carbohydrates and fiber, like those in beans, prevent sharp insulin spikes while providing a sustained energy release that supports strength training, recovery, and hormonal stability. Anchoring nutrition in biological truths means making informed choices based not on hype, but on measurable outcomes in mitochondrial density, muscle retention, metabolic efficiency, and neurochemical balance. Highlighting age-dependent physiology means acknowledging that the body's internal landscape transforms dramatically over the decades, particularly after age 60. What once worked for muscle growth, energy levels, and recovery at 25 may no longer yield the same results because the hormonal, cellular, and metabolic environments are fundamentally different. Testosterone, estrogen, and growth hormone levels naturally decline, reducing the body's anabolic drive and slowing the rate at which muscle tissue is repaired and rebuilt. The responsiveness of muscle to protein intake, known as anabolic sensitivity, diminishes with age, meaning that older adults require a higher threshold of protein, particularly leucine-rich sources, to stimulate the same level of muscle protein synthesis as in younger individuals. Mitochondrial efficiency also wanes, reducing cellular energy output, which affects physical endurance, strength, and recovery. Insulin sensitivity typically decreases, making blood glucose harder to regulate and increasing the likelihood of fat accumulation over lean muscle, particularly in the abdomen. Bone density drops, joint stiffness increases, and inflammation becomes more chronic due to immunosenescence and oxidative stress, all of which make muscle preservation not just desirable but essential for mobility, independence, and longevity. Digestive function can slow, affecting nutrient absorption, especially of key minerals like calcium, magnesium, and zinc, which play critical roles in neuromuscular function. How do we? Highlighting these physiological shifts isn't about fear. It's about precision. It's about recognizing that age doesn't strip the body of its potential, but it demands smarter strategies, deeper understanding, and nutritional choices that align with the new rules of a changing biology that still responds, still adapts, and still grows with the right inputs. Use metaphors that tap into neuroscience to bridge complex biological processes with emotionally resonant and visually graspable ideas, making the invisible world of neurons, circuits, and chemicals feel tangible and empowering. The brain is not a static machine. It is a living command center, constantly rewiring itself in response to inputs like light, movement, breath, and food. It operates like a city of electrical storms, where nutrients act as the voltage regulators. Neurotransmitters are the couriers of thought and mood. And habits carve highways that determine how fast and efficiently information travels. Think of dopamine as the brain's GPS for motivation. It doesn't just reward outcomes, it anticipates reward, pulling you toward meaningful actions like gravity. Serotonin can be likened to the system's internal stabilizer, a gyroscope for emotional balance and satiety. The prefrontal cortex is the CEO of behavior, impulse control, and long-term planning, while the amygdala operates like an emergency response system, scanning for threats and flooding the body with stress signals when activated. The foods you either reinforce calm, focus, and neuroplasticity, or they trigger inflammation that shortcuts these processes, clouding decision-making and accelerating cognitive decline. Training your brain with routines is like engraving a path through dense neural forest. Repetition turns friction into flow. Just like muscle, the brain is malleable, sculpted by effort, rhythm, and intention. Even the aging brain retains its ability to adapt. Plasticity doesn't disappear. It just requires clear signals and more deliberate repetition to take hold. Your nervous system is a symphony of biology and belief, and when you feed it the right cues. Nutritional, emotional, behavioral, it begins to rewrite the soundtrack of your life from breakdown to breakthrough. Stress consistency over perfection, because the human body and brain thrive not on occasional excellence, but on repeated exposure to supportive habits that reinforce adaptive change. In the realm of physiology, especially after the age of 60, progress is not driven by grand, unsustainable efforts, but by small, regular actions that send stable, reliable signals to the body's recovery, growth, and regulatory systems. The nervous system calibrates itself based on predictability. It tunes its stress response, sleep cycles, hunger signals, and even motivation by what it repeatedly experiences. Just as synaptic plasticity, the strengthening of neural connections, depends on repeated firing, so too does muscle maintenance and hormonal balance rely on repeated action. A single healthy meal does little. A week of them starts to shift insulin sensitivity, gut microbiome composition, and inflammation markers. The goal isn't to create a perfect diet or a flawless training regimen, but to build a system where the body can predict and prepare for the next signal. Consistency builds momentum within the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, reducing chronic stress responses and allowing repair and restoration pathways like parasympathetic activation and autophagy to take the lead. Perfection, on the other hand, breeds anxiety, procrastination, and metabolic inconsistency. It's the daily walk instead of the once-a-month sprint, the regular intake of fiber, protein, hydration, and micronutrients delivered without extreme variation. Conditions the gut-brain axis and stabilizes neurotransmitter production. Every consistent behavior, no matter how small, becomes a neurological and biological anchor, a point of reference the body and brain use to decide whether to grow, recover, or conserve. The compound effect of these steady choices rewires identity, optimizes hormone cascades, reinforces neuroplastic changes, and gradually raises the baseline of physical and cognitive performance in a way that single perfect effort never could. Incorporate actionable daily routines to translate scientific insight into tangible behavior that the nervous system and body can reliably anticipate and respond to. Routines serve as temporal anchors for the brain's circadian and ultradian rhythms, guiding hormonal release, energy availability, digestion, and neural efficiency in a predictable pattern that enhances both physical resilience and mental clarity. Starting the day with a protein-rich breakfast, especially one that includes leucine containing plant proteins like beans, stimulates muscle protein synthesis and stabilizes blood glucose, setting a metabolic tone that reduces cravings and preserves lean mass. Light exposure within the first hour after waking regulates the suprachiasmatic nucleus, aligning the sleep-wake cycle and supporting cortisol's natural peak, which sharpens focus and primes motivation. Mid-morning movement, even a brisk walk or resistance band routine, activates fast twitch muscle fibers and maintains insulin sensitivity, while also reinforcing the dopaminergic reward loop for consistent effort. Hydration rituals, such as drinking a tall glass of water with added electrolytes, can be tied to habit stacking with other behaviors like supplementation or mobility work. Afternoon routines may include a second, smaller protein feeding, perhaps another serving of legumes paired with a vitamin C-rich vegetable, which aids in nutrient absorption and buffers inflammation. Cognitive routines focused deep work followed by strategic breaks allow the brain's attention networks to cycle tension and release, reinforcing neuroplasticity and preventing burnout. As evening approaches, winding down with a high-fiber, moderate-carb meal supports serotonin synthesis and body temperature regulation, both crucial for restorative sleep. Limiting screen time and including a gratitude or journaling practice can shift autonomic balance toward parasympathetic dominance, preparing the brain and body for overnight repair. Repeating these cues daily doesn't just support biological health, it trains the identity. The body begins to expect nourishment, movement, focus, and rest at certain times, reducing decision fatigue, enhancing adherence, and reinforcing the inner architecture of behavioral change. Frame dietary shifts as identity upgrades by positioning food choices not as restrictive obligations, but as reflections of a deeper transformation in how individuals see themselves and what they believe they're capable of becoming. At a neurological level, every choice, especially repeated choices, feeds into the brain's construction of identity through the prefrontal cortex, reinforcing a self-image of discipline, vitality, and purpose. When someone chooses a fiber-rich, plant-powered meal instead of a processed option, it's not just about calories or macros. It's an act that communicates, I am someone who respects their future. These choices activate a feedback loop in the brain's dopaminergic system, where effort and outcome align to reward the behavior and embed it deeper into one's sense of self. Food becomes a daily ritual of embodiment, a signal that strength, clarity, and longevity are not left to chance, but are actively pursued and claimed. This shift in framing also reframes aging itself rather than declining into frailty. The individual is ascending into wisdom with strategy, using nutrition as a tool to unlock latent energy, preserve muscle, protect cognition, and reclaim biological momentum. The old identity, shaped by convenience or misinformation, is shed in favor of a new, empowered one built on knowledge, consistency, and self-respect. Just as athletes eat with intention to support performance, individuals over 60 can begin to eat with the same intentionality, not to compete with youth, but to outperform their own previous norms. Every bite becomes a behavioral microdose of self-leadership, and every grocery decision becomes a vote for the person they are becoming. Not just someone who eats healthier, but someone who sees their body as a system worth investing in. This identity-based lens sustains long-term adherence because it's no longer about willpower. It's about alignment between belief, biology, and behavior, with food serving as the clearest daily expression of that alignment.